So welcome everybody. It's good to see your beautiful faces again. Everything that we do today on this side of the mat, you can apply to moving around. It's very similar. The concepts are the same. I want to go to this side of the mat because I think there's more, how do you say it, link between spatial awareness and the kind of development that we want the children to be working on. When we say spatial awareness, I think it's really important for people to understand what do we mean? What are we talking about when we say spatial awareness? Because if you look up a definition of spatial awareness, it may be different depending on where you get that source of information from. So the way we want you to understand spatial awareness, or the way I would like you to understand spatial awareness, is it's your movements. So very importantly, I'm putting movements into my definition. It's your movements in relation to objects. Okay, so it's your movements in relation to objects, and that may change your understanding of spatial awareness. I think it's an active participation in that activity that allows you to build that spatial awareness rather than a passive one. So if you're passively sitting and looking at a spatial orientation, of course you can use that, and of course you can solve problems on that. But the minute you move your body or move an object through it, it changes your understanding. And that's because we bring three very important developmental areas into that. So the first one would be your visual discrimination. So as you move, your optics change. And so your visual discrimination adjusts to what you see. So if I was walking through a room, Martin, you would love this, a really big room with massive bricks on the floor, and I was looking at these bricks, and they were huge bricks. Every time I walked around a brick, my visual perception, my visual discrimination would change, and I would change what I'm getting in terms of the information. So that's number one, is that visual skills that we would be using. The second one, some of you have heard us talk about the vestibular system. And so the vestibular system is the built-in spirit level. Let's call it the built-in spirit level that you have just behind your ears. That is a crucial part of the development of any child. And the vestibular system plays a massive role in your perceptual development, because perceptual is body and brain. It's that motor. Okay, so your vestibular system is helping you with all of those movements. Your vestibular system teaches you initially how to balance. How do you build balance for your body? How do you stand? How does a child stand? So the vestibular system is helping you with balance. Your vestibular system is very important in terms of keeping your head still so that your eyes can move and focus on what it's supposed to focus, and it holds your posture in line as well. So your vestibular system is designed to prepare the body in order to receive the stimulation that it requires to be able to process. And that could be for reading. So that's a very important part of getting ready for reading. It could just be for taking in information. It could be for interacting with people. It could be for interacting with your environment. So making sure that you don't bump into anything or bump into somebody else, or don't stand too close to somebody. So it's even understanding personal boundaries. It helps you with all of that. Okay, and linked to the vestibular system, and all three of these are linked, which is really important. So as I said, so it's visual, then you've got your vestibular system, and then the last one is what we call proprioception. So that ability for your muscles to be able to learn how far to go, how far to move in any situation, but also for the muscles in your hands to learn how much to contract in terms of how much to pull the fingers in together. So when you pick up an egg, you don't squash an egg. Okay, so you know how hard. The proprioception is the skill in terms of how to do that. So even picking up a brick requires proprioception. So to pick up a brick, I have to know how to put my hands together hard enough to pick up the brick. But it doesn't really matter with the Duplo brick if I squash it, because I can't damage the brick. But if this was a piece of paper, I could squash the piece of paper. If this was an egg, I could squash the egg. And I could also squash a banana or a fruit that I might want to eat. But I just want you to know that those three are going to be incredibly important when it comes to developing spatial awareness. And when we're working on the mat, all three of those systems are going to be in place. All three of them are going to be invoked, and all three of them are going to be practiced. And that's what the mat is all about. Okay, so that's what today's exercise is all about. And also for you to consider, so if you look at me right now, if you look at a child, if a child is sitting at the table like this and wants to do the exercise from over here, it's going to change the exercise dramatically. Okay, so even this, where my head is, where my eyes are, the fact that I'm slumping, I'm leaning over. And if you look at children working on tablets today, go and have a look at pictures on the internet of children interacting with tablets and even doing online activities with their friends or with teachers or whatever. You'll see them often lying like this with a tablet in front of them, right here, where they're comfortable. And it's going to change the exercise because my vestibular system right now is telling me that not everything is in equilibrium, that I'm definitely leaning to one side, and it's going to change the way that the exercise is perceived and how the brain takes that information in. So essentially, without trying to be too prescriptive, we would like the children to be sitting kind of in the middle of the mat. It would make more sense, right? And it would make more sense for the child to sit in a nice position. If I could stand, it would even perhaps enhance the activities sometimes. So depending on the activities, try and change the position of the child to get the results that you want. So as you're facilitating, as a facilitator, your job isn't only to take the call-out sheets and to call out the activity. Your job is to look at body language, at body positioning, framing, how the child is standing, sitting, and interacting with the activity that you're going to be doing. And so we're going to be looking at that today as well. Okay, we'll be doing those options. So this is really important. So for today's start, I'm going to just be sitting at the table. I'm pretty much in the middle of the table, and I'm freeing my hands up to be able to move around this. So this is the best starting position. Those of you that have worked with me before also know that I like to get children to show me that they're ready to do the exercise. In other words, silence isn't what I actually want to start the exercise. What I want is you to show me through your body language that you're excited. Exactly, Frank. I need something. I need you to shake your hands. I need you to shake your head. I need you to do something that releases the muscles in your shoulders, because I need those muscles to be relaxed if I want to take that information in. If I want proprioception to go beyond my fingers and extend all the way up my arm into my shoulders to make the connection to my brain stronger, I need to be ready for that process to happen. And so I like to loosen the fingers, the wrists, the arms, the shoulders. We try to do all of that. And you've seen me do it again and again. And some people think it's a waste of time. I don't believe it's a waste of time. I think it's a preparatory step that helps children, especially children that might be worried about the activity or the exercise. Okay, so we don't want to build the tension in their shoulders, because then the feedback systems and mechanisms that we're trying to build are not going to work in the best way that we want them to build.
Yes, I just wanted to say hello to everyone. And instead of putting the bricks this way on the mat, I often put them this way on the mat. It was one time it was a child who had difficulties to stay in the columns. And she said, can I put the bricks that way? And I think it's a great way to avoid children who are having difficulties to stay in the right column.
Very good point. And thank you for that. So remember, on my mat today, because I've spread mine out, I've kind of mitigated that already. But if you have a child who has all the bricks like this on top of each other, turning them like that, look at the space. Again, we create the spatial awareness, and kids can see now the difference, and the bricks might slide differently. And again, that's a brilliant session. You can do it I mean, I know a lot of you are typing in, and so there's brilliant responses in the chat. And you know, because this has been recorded, it's also something you can go and read afterwards. So there's great feedback there. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else?
Can I check in on the one-handed? What if they only like to use one side of their body in terms of one arm only? Do I encourage them to use both hands? Is that necessary to let them balance up the brain?
So, Pezvin, it's going to be down to an individual child and an individual situation. So what would happen is, we do the one hand behind the back. That's to force the children to do that. But it's essentially to force them to cross the midline. So that a lot of children today, I don't know if you know, because of cell phones, I don't know if you've seen how they pass an object, even for themselves. They pick it up in this hand, pass it to here, and then put it down on the other side. So test if that's how they move a glass of water from one side of the table to the other. If they can stretch over, they've got no problems. If they pass it to their hand and take it over, you might have to intervene. And so it's down to the individual child. There's no specific need to do that. But if you had, Abby's typing in something interesting now, but if you've had patients that have had strokes or children with disabilities, or if somebody's been injured, you may also have to intervene because they've got into the habit of doing one hand because they don't want to exercise the other hand or the other arm. So again, that's why I say, look at it individually and then help them make that decision. If a child is constantly going to one hand, in other words, if they tuck the one hand away and they constantly do the exercise with one hand, you'll see two things. Number one, it slows them down. So there's a time factor, which means that they could fall behind in some of the exercises. And so teaching them that two hands helps them with speed is one option, another way to look at it. But just change your exercises. So just do something incredibly difficult, like, can we do the whole exercise while I'm balancing a brick on my right hand? So now we continue to move while I've got a brick on my right hand. So what happens there is you're invoking both hands at the same time. And the brain is having to concentrate on keeping this balanced while I'm moving. Okay, so you can add complexity just by adding that, something like that. So if you prefer not to put the hand behind the back, just try a different exercise like that. You can up it like that. I want to focus on the study around the between. What does it mean to be between in a spatial awareness concept versus what does it mean to be between in a language? So between in a language can sometimes translate differently what between in mathematics means. Okay, so we will look at that at some stage as well, is what does that look like? So on your basic exercises, there's a general understanding that the movement has to start with the body. And we've all done that with you before. So we've just said to you, if you can build this mat out on the floor and children can move their bodies, that's obviously number one. That's the best thing that you can do. So the child becomes the brick and they move around on the mat. They understand their relationship to other people. So this is where we bring the human factor in, because it's not just objects, it's people and objects. That's very important. So when we work on the mat alone, we forget about people. And so how do I bring people into that equation? So that's something else we're going to look at today, is how do you bring the people in, okay? So the movements, the basic movements, up and down. Won't you pass me the frame? So up and down, people say to me, Brent, that can be very confusing because what is up and what is down when you're on a flat surface? So those of you that have seen this before, I know it's normal to see me in jail, but that's not what it's about. If you've seen the training wheels, kind of training wheels for a bicycle that we use for the mat, so that's where we put the bricks inside this device. So if a child is struggling with keeping their bricks in a line, we can put that device down and all of a sudden the only place I can move the bricks is within the structure. So it's like a training wheel. It doesn't matter what happens, the training wheel will work. So with children that are struggling, this is very, very important, okay, to be able to have that. But what happens if you don't have this? So what are the things that we can do if we don't have that? we need to think about things like that. So one of the ways to do that is to have pieces of string that a child can track themselves on a piece of string. You can put tape on the mat. You can draw lines on the mat. There are different ways to put out a visual plane so that they can also see that. But what's also nice to help that in terms of what this helps with is the following. When you say up, we normally mean up is away from you, all right? It's up and then down is towards you. But a lot of people will say, how does a child interpret up and down? And where does up and down come from in terms of a flat plane? Well, if I was able to take the mat and put the mat straight up in front of me, have a look what happens. As I lift this up and I build in that dimension, if I had the brick over here, where would the brick go? It would go up. And as I put that down, you'll see that the brick is away from me. So up is away from me, down is towards me. It just depends on how I lift it. Okay, and so that's how we try and help with up and down. There are different ways for you guys to do that. So you can look at different ways to do up and down. So backwards and forwards, I think most people understand that. So on the mat, backwards and forwards is not too difficult. And when you're using your body, take one step forward, it's not too difficult. Take one step back. Most people are able to translate that one, and it's quite easy to bring into the mat. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to look at backwards and forwards, but I want to bring the person in. So I don't just want to have it now with a child sitting at the mat. I want to bring a person in so that we have the social interaction, and we also have the concept of another person's space and how I work in another person's space. So I'm going to have Abby and Jana come and work on this mat over here. Up to now, they've been sitting on the side, and they've been very annoying because they're constantly laughing at all of you and pointing out all the funny faces. And they're sitting in the corner making a noise and getting in my way. But now I'm going to make them work. Okay, questions, Rafael?
Sorry, those wrong pressing, sorry.
Okay. I said wrong press. Okay, so here are two students that we want to work with. We're standing up. They can see the matter, yeah. We're standing up because I want you to be able to watch the body language and watch them. Yeah, you want to drop that for now? Okay, so watch the body language. I want you to look at the body language and I want to watch. These are basic exercises, so it's not the exercise. Forget about where the bricks are going. I want you to focus on body language. I want you to look at the people. Okay, so some of you have done this one before. When I ask them to use the bricks, I can ask them to divide the bricks themselves. So choose 3 bricks each. Or I can help them. I can say, Jana is doing the 3 bricks closer to her, and Abby is doing the 3 bricks closer to her. I can make it more complicated by saying, choose 3 bricks so that they're not in a line, they're not next to each other. Or I can ask them to do alternate movements. So the first movement is for Abby, the second one is for Jana, then it goes back to Abby, back to Jana. So you can increase the complexity by scaffolding the exercise, okay? Let's look at just body language for now, okay? So watch how easy it is when the 3 bricks are positioned right in front of you. So Jana, you've got your 3, Abby, you've got your 3. So very simply, I'm just going to go red up, green down, light blue up, orange down, dark blue up, orange up, red up, yellow down, light blue down. Okay, so not too difficult. The person's focusing on a small mat, only 3 bricks, and that's all they're focusing on. So it's not difficult. There was no interaction across the table and getting them to have to appreciate the other person. There was no real need for that, okay? And they're standing on the same side of the table. Now what I'm going to do, you can put them back. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to alternative movements. In other words, so Abby will do the first one, Jana the second one. Okay? But now because the bricks are going to move further away, watch how their body is changing. You saw them hardly moving, right? The vestibular system was very balanced. It wasn't too difficult. Let's see if we can increase the movement. And this is on the small mat. Imagine if we were on the big mat. Okay, Abby, you first, right? Okay, red up, dark blue down. orange up, yellow down, light blue up, green down, orange down, yellow down, dark blue down, red up. Okay, so now all of a sudden what's happening is you'll notice that they had to cross each other a little bit. They came across and their hands were getting in each other's way. So the exercise, when they were covering the last brick, if I was clever, I was choosing the color that was underneath the arm. So the person's scanning the mat, but the last place they're going to go to is where the arm is because the arm's still coming out. So you can increase the complexity. And that's why I'm saying to you, yes, you can use these call-out notes and they're a great start. So you know these notes that you can just go to, right, and print and call out. But if you can take agency and do the calling yourself and get confident on that, you're going to be better at the mat. Now, watch here. How do I teach a child to do this? If I took Abby, and Abby was a very nervous child, and I said, Abby, I want you to do what Brent just did, Abby's now going to worry about that, right? It's going to become a problem. What happens if she makes a mistake? So now we're going to go back to the basics and watch what I do for that type of exercise. Okay, Johanna, you are going to have the bricks on the right. So now I'm making it even more difficult for them. Johanna can only control the bricks that are the furthest from her, and Abby can only control the bricks that are the furthest from her. So I want them to cross this imaginary midline between the two of them. Okay, I'm forcing their bodies and their vestibular system to move. The vestibular system's got to register that movement. And it's just about how far they're going. Okay, so have a watch. But I'm going to throw something in which you guys may not have seen before. Okay, and remember, that's what this training is about. What about something new? Can we see something new? So watch closely, because you will get it. All right. Light blue forward, orange forward, yellow forward, green backwards, dark blue backwards, Abby out.
Red forwards, light blue backwards, yellow up, orange down, green up, Yana out.
Okay, red backwards, orange forward, green backward.
Okay, and stop. Okay, so have a look at this. So what happens is we can almost have that sense where a child will be tapped out and they'll take over. So now instead of having all of the weight of that exercise on the child only gets parts of the exercise and they start practicing that in small pieces, okay? What's also interesting is that when Abby came back in, she came back in at a different place to where she started. And so the colors that she was thinking about was sitting on the other side of the mat. So she had to reorientate herself to be able to understand which are her bricks and which aren't her bricks. And she had to remember what the rules of the game are. So even when she was out, she was falling, which was a different role. Then when she went back in, she picked up a new role. So we've got role reversals, role changes as well.
Just tapping into that executive functioning, guys.
Yeah. And it's not such an easy exercise. So even when I tapped myself in, I had to very quickly realize that the color in front of me wasn't the color I could touch. I almost touched it. And that's, again, executive function, right? Being able to snap in quickly. And I'm setting the rules. So if I'm getting confused, can you imagine how difficult it is for the children? It's a great way to get them in. Okay. So just tapping people in and tapping them out. So what we can do in the classroom is you can have 3 children in the team instead of just 2. So now we're adding to the complexity and we're adding to people. What about the spatial awareness? Watch this. When I say Abby out, I can't move towards the mat and Abby can't come to where I am because we're going to bump into each other. So do you see how that is, again, spatial awareness? Abby either moves back and I identify the space and I move into the space. Whereas if children, you'll see with children, if I say Abby out, bump me, this is what's going to happen. Because they're so excited, they want to get out and the other child wants to get in and they're going to bump into each other. Okay. And that's then another opportunity to practice the spatial awareness and understanding. So that's why I said to you, in my definition, it's movement, it's people, and it's objects.
And remember that bumping brings in the proprioception that Brent was talking about as well, because now you have a proprioceptive physical response to say, oh, I'm in the wrong place. I need to move. I need to figure this out.
I love the shoulder bump. I think the shoulder bump is essential because it's that feedback. It's an instant feedback for a child. And later on, when we do left and right, it's very important because what happens is the tap on the shoulder tells you you've got it wrong. The teacher doesn't have to tell you you've got it wrong. Nobody has to tell you you've got it wrong because you feel it yourself. Your body experiences the fact that you've gone in the wrong direction. And so you get that kind of, you correcting yourself, which is a much more positive step. Okay. So that's two people working next to each other, and that just helps you with that personal interaction.
I think you can definitely talk to the kids about like what did they learn in that process and how hard was it and did they enjoy doing it and how did they feel about giving the instructions.
So the very first one, we had children sitting next to each other. And I haven't seen too many people do this one, is how does it change the exercise when we get children to sit opposite each other? Because now we bring in a completely different understanding of space. We're going to be looking at it essentially from two different positions, which is actually how everybody looks at space. We don't all look at space in the same way. So this is actually a much better indication of how people look at it. It's very different. So we're going to have Jana on one side of the mat and Abby on the other side. You understand it? Okay. So you can turn it. Jana, that's good. All right. So can you see the mat? We've tried to set it so you get a sense of the mat this time and body language. Okay. So you can see both. Shoulder up. Yeah. So Frank's feedback is that one feedback is the shoulder, but for some children, reflecting on the words is necessary. And again, Frank, I think that's also depending on the language of where you are, who you're talking to, if it's mother tongue, second, yeah.
The age of
the child, all of that. So that the reinforcement needs sometimes to be more than one. The shoulder might not be enough. You might have to use language to help them with that, especially if it's their second language. Okay, so especially if you're not doing it in mother tongue. Okay, so if you look at this one over here, we're changing the exercise somewhat. So they're standing at a horrible angle now. So they're not sitting at a perfect table where they can sit in the middle. So both Abby and Jana are standing at a horrible angle. So body language, don't worry about too much. Now I want you to look at the actual movement of the bricks. Okay, so we have two options to start with. The obvious one is that whatever the instruction is, it has to be right to them. So according to them, the action must be right. So, for instance, if I say to Abby, red up, it's up. But to Jana, that is not up. Because from Jana's perspective, that is down. Okay? So what's great is what the children start doing is they start following the instruction, not only their instruction, but they follow Abby's instruction to check if Abby's got it right, because their team, they want their team to be successful. And that reversing is brilliant for the brain. It's a brilliant exercise, right? It's part of what we probably all know is the Sloop, what's it? The Sloop test, where we're able to get the brain to flip and do the reversal, right? The complete opposite. So the first exercise, if it's Abby's move, she moves it according to her. If it's Jana's move, she moves it according to her. Okay, have you decided who's doing which bricks?
I'll do hot.
That's right.
Okay, so you see we gave them agency. Jana said, I want to do the hot bricks, and Abby's now left with the cold bricks. And those bricks are not laid out in the perfect order. They're all muddled up. Now your brain has to do that association as well. Okay, so they're doing association, and they're going to be doing the opposites every second time they do it. And what you want is you want the team to get it right. So if Abby makes a mistake, Jana needs to correct her if she can. Okay, so they're going to be correcting each other as well. So let's have a look how that goes. And we're still just playing with up and down, nothing more. Okay, okay, red up, yellow down. Good. So you see there was a correction and they helped each other. Great. Orange down, light blue up. Orange down, dark blue up. Green down. Okay, red up. Okay, so you'll see both of them were at the start of the exercise. They both were kind of leaning a little bit on the table. They were relaxed. They were waiting for the instructions. Have you noticed how their body language changed the minute the instructions came? It was impossible to lean like that. They couldn't do it. Both of them lifted their bodies and they got their waist kind of pointing towards the middle of the table, and they were standing up and they were in a heightened sense in order to be able to listen to the instructions, okay? So when you're doing this exercise, watch that body language, because the child who doesn't change, you guarantee that there's going to be some problem coming from that, okay? And it may not be spatial, it may not be mathematics, you may not be able to determine it and everything, but you'll know that something out of those three areas, visual, vestibular, and proprioception, one of those three are probably going to have something that you need to look at. Okay, put them back. Okay, now what we want to do is increase the complexity. So if they can do that, because it's easy, they've done it from their side of the mat already. So that wasn't difficult for them to do. They may have to think a little bit about the second movement, but their own movements they're very comfortable with. Now what we're going to get them to do is we're going to make the brick only correct for one person's side. So one of the people are going to say, I want it to be my side. In other words, they take the ownership. So who's taking it?
I'll take it.
Okay, so now what happens is all the instructions are true according to Abby. So the other person now has to step into the shoes of an Abby and try and understand what it would be like to be on Abby's side of the table. So it's quite a process, because they've got to come all the way around. Okay, and they have to see, what would it be like if I was on Abby's side of the table? And can I mimic that from my side of the table? Okay, so for Abby, it's easy. For Jana, it's going to be more difficult. And then we'll swap over and give them a chance. So everything has to be right according to Abby's. How you do that?
Still hot and cold.
Okay, they're sticking to hot and cold. They've got their own program, it's their own process, so that's fine. Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Red up, light blue down, green up, orange down.
Oh.
No, you were right.
Okay, so have a look here. Have a look at that exercise. So Jana was 100% right. The word was down. Okay, and so she moved it for Abby as if it was down. And Abby's brain didn't process that, because she's also having to reverse that process for her own understanding. Okay, so you'll see how complicated that is. That's not an easy one. Now watch, if you want to see them get confused, all I have to do is increase the speed, which is me. Okay, so this is me being me. Are you ready? I want you to watch body language. I want you to watch their heads. Okay, because now you're practicing to be a great facilitator of the mat. You can't only watch the bricks. I want you to also watch their bodies, what they're going to do. All right, so shake it out for me, shake it out. You ready? I'm going to go a little bit faster and then faster and faster, but don't worry about what happens, okay? I just want you to enjoy it. Okay. No, you can stay where you are. Yellow up, dark blue down, light blue down, orange up, red up, green down, yellow down, orange down, light blue up, dark blue down, light blue up, yellow up, orange down, red down, green down. Okay, have a look. So they did really well, because that was quite fast and they got it right. Obviously, these two should be good because they practiced this, okay? Thanks.
Thanks, Marie.
Yeah, Marie's been very kind to you, the two of you, okay? They did very well, but did you notice that towards the end, there was the first pauses that were coming into the processing? And that's what we want to see. If you want the children to be challenged enough, there needs to be a slight pause in the activity. Then you know that you're at that optimal flow. They're getting it right, but they're having to think about it. We want them in that channel of optimal flow. If they're just doing it without, then it's too easy. And you have to lift it out. If they're making too many mistakes, then it's too hard. The optimal flow, you should see one or two mistakes and a slight pause as they're processing. Okay, so if we want to go up another level, and this is me, what we're going to do is, when I call it out, Abby will move the brick, but it has to be true to Jana. And when Jana moves the brick, it has to be true to Abby. So now you are standing, you projecting your body to the other side of the table. Whatever we're showing you today, you can never do this in one session. It would be crazy to do this in one session. You would build the competencies towards this. That's why we want optimal flow. I want to show you how complicated it is to do this, because have a look at what happens to the two of them now. You ready? Okay, so check it out. How are you doing it now on colors? Okay, so I want for you guys to be able to see better on the screen. I'm going to split it in 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, because it'll be easier for your brains on the screen to track it as well. So who's doing which? So Jana's doing these 3 colors over here and Abby's doing those. So both on their right hand. They took the side that they're most comfortable on. Okay, it's obviously on their right hand side. Okay. And so now as you move, you'll see what happens. So Abby's going to make her bricks true to Jana, and Jana's going to make her bricks true to Abby. Okay? And this is that whole exercise. What's it like walking in somebody else's shoes? So you can do that whole social interaction with children. What do you think it would be like to be in somebody else's shoes? Well, here's an example. Practice it. Okay, so let's see if it works. Okay, you ready? Shake it out, shake it out. Even these two need to shake it out. Okay, good. Shoulders loose. Okay, fantastic. Red up. Light blue down. Orange up. Yellow up. Dark blue up. Green up. Orange down. Red up. Okay, so that's pretty high order processing. If you have your 3 colors in front of you, it's not that difficult to start off with, because all you're going to do is you're going to reverse everything that the person tells you. And if you can find your colors, it's easy. When the colors are mixed, that's when it becomes difficult. Okay, so it was much easier if we just did it on one side. Again, you can scaffold this and make it more difficult by doing that. I love the exercise sitting opposite. I don't think you guys practice it enough, and I don't think you do it enough. It's a very powerful exercise in terms of how to play yourself out on the mat. Okay, so opposites also work with lots of other things. Like, so if we look at the spaces on the mat, when we do the gray boxes, top left, top right, middle, all of those are also brilliant exercises to do on the mat as well. Okay, so we can scale it up by just changing and bringing all of those in. Okay, so put it back. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we want to take what we've just shown you to a slightly different level. Some of you have seen this before. So from a spatial perception, what I want you to look at is, if you have the ability to do this in a classroom, if you've got round tables, it can be just as effective. So we had one long table over here, but if you had a round table, this is brilliant on a round table. So what we want children to conceptualize or think about is that, why do we have to stop on one mat? What happens if we extend our mat into a whole lot of other mats so that we can build as many lines as we like? In other words, we're not limited by the mat. And of course, you can teach that as a concept, but it's much more powerful if you actually lay that concept out and you get children to experience that concept. So if I took my bricks over here and I put them on this mat over here, and I decide that I want to do the exercise from here. And obviously at this stage, I'm doing left and right. And you can all see it from there. You can get a sense of what it is now. If I'm doing left and right and I'm going dark blue, right, red, left, dark blue, right, red, left, dark blue, right, all that I'm doing is I'm moving it onto the next line, onto the next mat. So in order for you to see that, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to just leave the space so that the distance between the lines remains constant. So it looks more or less the same, the distance. Now, why should the distance be the same? And why shouldn't I put the mat right next to each other? The reason for that is the muscle memory that I want to create is important. Every time I move the brick perfectly onto the line, perfectly onto the line, perfectly onto the line, is the same exercise that a kid doing handwriting would be doing. In other words, going up to the top of the line, down, top of the line, down, top of the line, down. It's the same muscle memory. Okay, so we want to build muscle memory. The bigger the movement, the better. And slowly we're limiting the movement. And by moving this, we want that movement to be the same. So when I do the layout, I try to lay it out so that all the lines are equidistant. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but that's what I've tried to do here now. And what we're doing with teams in South Africa, when I say teams, I'm talking about sports teams, not just classrooms of children. I'm talking about sports teams. You can maybe zoom in a little bit, just coming a little bit closer. Coming. It's not so important to see my face. Okay, so what we're doing with sports teams is we're getting teams to work on these exercises together. Now, the team, you would say to me, why do I want a team, a sports team to work together? Because in a sports team, what they are finding is that most sports require you to have some type of vision. If you've got a vision, a good vision on a sports team, if you can see what's happening around you, you're generally going to be a better player. So they work on eye movements and they work on activities to help them with eye movements. But what's also important, so Abs and Yana, if you can, so what's also important, if I've got Abs and Yana with one on either side. Okay, if I have Abs and Yana with me, is when a team is able to synchronize. In other words, when the team is starting to read body language from the people that they play next to, maybe this is somebody who plays on the right-hand side of me in sports and somebody on my left-hand side and I'm the central tackler or whatever. If the whole team learns to synchronize together, so we're going to synchronize to the right, like just with our shoulders like that. If we can synchronize and get that movement right in a team, when I know the sign that Jan is about to stop, so Jan, you just stop at any time whenever you feel like you want to stop. Okay, and now you see how Abby and I are out. Now, the quicker we can identify when a teammate is stopping can determine the success of that team. So in sports, what they're finding is it's the ability for the eyes to pick up on the body language that's happening around you. And that, funny enough, is still spatial awareness because it's reading a person's movement as opposed to your movement around objects. So it's a very advanced stage of spatial awareness. So what we want to do is we want to have exercises that allow us to practice that. So you're going to need a set of bricks and another you need a set of bricks. And so what we're going to do is start on this mat over here. So we're going to just show it to you. So you could do this in a round table, which I prefer, but I'm just going to show it to you on this table now. So we're going to continue to the left and right as if there are other people in the room. There's not. We're just going to pretend there are more people. There's only 3 of us for you to watch at the moment, okay? And you're going to see how it works. So what happens is we would do the same exercise. If the bricks are still in any order, you'll notice how difficult it is for you as the facilitator to even identify what they're doing because you won't see a pattern. So watch how difficult it is. You're now looking at the bricks. Hopefully you can see some of these. And yeah, so they can see most of them. Okay, so just tilt the angle a little bit. Yeah, don't worry about our faces. You can watch our bodies, which is important, and then you can watch the bricks. Okay, so I'm going to say the color, and we're just going to move the brick. So in the beginning, it's just bricks. So watch the bricks for now. And you're a facilitator, so you're watching this exercise. You're looking for issues, problems, and delays. If you're going to look for delays, they're probably going to rest. Oh, no. Okay. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, shake it out. Okay, are we ready? Orange, left. Remember, we're doing left and right now, which is more difficult for a lot of people, okay? And if you, in the studies that I send you, you'll notice that one of the biggest indicators of poor spatial awareness is the ability to move left and right and identify left and right quickly. It's a very good sign that your spatial awareness is not developed well enough, okay? All right, yellow right, orange right, yellow left, orange right, yellow left, light blue left, green right, dark blue right, red left, yellow right, light blue left. Okay, so easy on the movements, very hard for you to track. Could you pick up all Abby's mistakes?
Everyone's focusing on me now, but I'm not the one.
Okay, no, the one making mistake. Okay, so do you see how difficult it was for you to pick up who's making a mistake and where the mistake is? Jana said she was making those mistakes on purpose. Okay, no, I'm joking. Okay, so now what I want you to watch is watch the brick now, because what happens if I push you outside of your board? Okay, so now this is not so easy for children, right? Because this is helping them build out the Cartesian plane in mathematics. That we have numbers that go to infinity to the left, infinity to the right, infinity in front, and infinity, it's everywhere. We're building out that Cartesian plane. So you can see the bricks now. So watch, here we go. Now we continue. Check it out. Okay, yellow right, easy. Light blue left, we got a problem because it's not, there's no space on my board for left and no space for there. So Jana went to the one before, I go onto Jana's, Abby comes onto mine. We go onto the other person's board, but we continue to play the game. We've just got somebody else's brick, which is now our brick. So as the bricks are shifting, they become yours. So if somebody puts it on your table, it's your brick. So what you're hoping is that a light blue brick arrives on your table, because otherwise you're in trouble. Okay. So if somebody puts a dark blue brick on, you know there's a problem. Okay. So you know by what's landed on your desk whether the person to your left or to your right is making a mistake or not. Okay, we'll play it out a few more times just for you to watch. Orange left, dark blue right, yellow left, dark blue right. There you go. So if there was a table that goes around, it works perfectly. If you get to the end of the table, we sometimes get children to run all the way to the end to demonstrate that they're continuing, there's a loop. Okay, now watch what happens. We'll just shift our bodies. Okay, so don't worry about the brick. Okay, so now we were moving the bricks left and right, but now what happens? I want people to move left and right. Why? Because if a young child is struggling with their left and their right, they're concentrating so much on the board, but the vestibular system might be kind of not, it's not still and it's not working, it's working, but I want to increase the vestibular system. I want the vestibular system to give me more help because I'm not good with left and right. So I want my shoulder touch, and I want my vestibular system to start recognizing, as Frank says, when that word comes left, my body must know what it means. When the word comes right, my body must know what it means. My whole body must know. Okay, so watch what happens now. Go back to the middle so that everybody can. That's it. Okay, so we're going on to the middle. Now what I'm going to do for you so you can understand a little bit better, can you all put it in the same order as me? So I'm going to order the bricks in the same way on my left and my right so that you don't have to worry about the pattern. You can see the movements. It'll make it easier for you, okay, on your side. Get that one for now, but keep that one there. Okay, that should be easier for you guys now to watch and see. Are you ready? Now we're going to be using more than just the bricks. Now I'm going to use body. Abby and Jana know the instruction. So we're going to go yellow, right? Do you see how when all three colors are lined up, it would make it easier for the facilitator to see if the children are understanding? So when you start, get them all to put it in grubby or whatever order you want. Okay, and it helps. I don't know where grubby came from. Where was it? It's not important. Okay. Okay, are you ready? We're going again. Light blue left, green right. Everybody right. Okay, so everybody right means we all have to shift to the right. And if we were in a circle, we would just go in one big circle. But I've got my whole body to go. Now, everybody, it wasn't you. Get up. Okay. Okay, so again, and when you're going quickly and you're trying to do the exercise quickly, it's quite a movement. So let's see if I can get some shoulder tapping. Let's see if I can do it, okay? Orange left, light blue left, red right, yellow left, orange left, everybody left. Run. Okay, good. And so we can get the movement going, and we're using the body by pushing, we're touching the person, we're prompting. So we're prompting the move, okay? When a team is really good at this, you ask them not to touch. In other words, attempt not to touch, but still use the body language to help your partner know. So maybe they twist towards the direction they're going. Now, think about a team that's playing sport. if I play long enough with you and I know every time you twist that you're about to go left, I can predict what I'm supposed to do because I know where you're going. The opponents don't know that. So that body language becomes a real strength in a team. And that could be a team working together in a company. It could be the team building that some of you are running. You can do it for team building, but it could be for a sports team. It could be for, any type of team that wants to synchronize and work a little bit stronger together. Okay. What we also sometimes do is the following. Sometimes I ask you to move with your brick. So if your brick moves from your table to the next table, you must go with your brick. So the brick forces you to move to the next table. Okay, so watch how it looks like. Go back to the middle, just so it's easier for them to track. We do it in the same order. Good. Right. So now what happens is we're going to move with our bricks, okay? If it goes off the mat. And when you see Abby running around, you've got to pretend that Abby would be going in one direction and we would be going around the table and doing it like that. Okay, are you ready? Yellow right, light blue left, orange right, yellow right, dark blue left, red left, green left. Yellow right. So I move with my brick, but now this is the difficulty. Children have it on the far line, and as they move, their hand and their body wants to go to the far line because it feels correct. Because you picked up the brick in this state, and now you want to move it to there. But the reality is the brick only moves to the next line. So it actually contradicts what your brain is telling you. It's not that easy. So you put the brick down. Okay, you're good? Light blue left, green left, light blue left. Okay, so you see again, we move with our brick to the mat. Okay, so that's the association with the brick rather than being stuck in with the mat. And if the brick's moving left, the body will go left. And funny enough, children that are struggling with left and right, this is a great exercise. It's not too difficult. And they move with the brick. They know where the brick's going. And so their body naturally follows. And they don't get that panic attack if the teacher's just said left, and I don't know where my left is and where my right is. All of a sudden, it makes it easier for them, and they're less anxious about left and right. Okay? And again, you can help children by telling them, if you're going to go left, pick the brick up with your left hand. Or if you're going to go right. So again, the hands could help them. And that is not the case for every single child. Okay, so you're going to have to look at them individually to be able to track that. Okay, but a really good exercise for you as facilitators to get teams to work together and building a little bit of fun. Okay. We can also do fun things like, let's say it was just these three mats. So now you know the continuing up and down, left and right. Now we've only got 3 mats. Good.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to put them back onto the line again. I can't remember the flow. Okay, good. That's on the middle.
I'm reading the chat.
Yeah. Okay. It's hard for us when they're all with me, we can't read the chat, but we'll try and track it and reply if we can see anything that we need to reply to. What I want to show you now is what happens if we don't have a whole team, but I've got 3 children and you want to do this in a class with 3 kids at a time and you want the movement. What we can do now is that the circle is Abby would go around the back of Johan and I, and we would shift like this, okay? And whoever's on this side, we just move and we just keep shifting. And what we want to do is to get them to move like that as quickly as possible and see what happens, okay? So now I'm going to play that one out for you. So now we're looking at spatial awareness and where we go. I told you they have to move backwards, but there's no rule that they have to work backwards. You'll see that if you ask them to do it in reverse order, it's difficult. If I say Abby must come in front of Johan and I, all of a sudden we're working and I say change, Abby has to move in front of us as we shift. And that's difficult because your brain doesn't tell you to do that. Okay, so we're playing with the brain again. All right, so you in the side, I'll get to the middle. Are you ready?
Ready.
There we go. So we're going to shift everybody left, everybody right. Or if the color's off the mat, we're taking the brick with us.
Okay.
Okay, so this time we're doing all of them. We're going to shift left and right for all of us. If the brick leaves our mat, we have to move to the other mat. So we got all of that in one go. Okay, this is higher, what's it? Higher order thinking at its highest. Okay, you ready? Let's shake it out. You'll notice even with us, we shake it out. Guys, get into the habit of getting the kids to shake it out. Get people, I can see, yeah, Deepti's even wanting to do her shoulders and stretch. And I know you've been listening to me for an hour. You probably all need a good stretch as well, right? In 2 minutes, I'm going to get you to stand up and stretch. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, lots of thinking and processing. You ready?
Okay,
Ready. Let's go. Dark blue left, red right. Orange left, dark blue left. Yellow left, everybody left.
Ah!
Okay, Jana fell for the trick. She wanted to go all the way around, all right? So you see the processing there. You saw it, you saw the body language, you see how it plays itself out. Okay, orange right. Okay, so also what happened was I said everybody left, and Abby was so attached to the brick she was touching, she took it with her. So I don't have a yellow brick anymore because she took it with her, okay? I didn't tell her to take the bricks. So can I have my brick back?
You said if we were.
Everybody left. Only when the brick goes off
No,
the table.
it felt like it was going off the
She
table.
thought it was going off the table, you see? So there we go. Is that where we are? All right. Light blue right, green left. Light blue right, light blue right. Did you see it? Did you see it? So Abby's natural reaction was to go back to the comfort place where she took it from, and she didn't put it onto the next line. So think of the processing, guys. There's a whack of processing that's going on right now. And that's 3 people at a mat. That's all it is. Okay? And if you want to get children to do this exercise and you as the facilitator can't watch them, have another team of 3 stand opposite and watch, and they can help the team, and then you have it in turns because it's a lot of processing. Okay, let's go for another one. Do we keep going? Orange right, red right. Everybody right. Dark blue left. Orange left. Yellow left. Everybody right. Okay, following it. So I know online this is not easy, but are you able to see it? Yeah, a lot of processing, you know, you're right. Good, and processing on your side too, because you're trying to track it and you're trying to watch it, which is difficult. Again, you're going to get better at this when you start practicing it yourself and start doing it with children. And the reality is that I know what will happen. Most of you will go back to the one mat, one person, what you're comfortable with, what you know, call out the instructions. I want you to create the chaos to help the children. Don't go too fast though. Remember, don't go too fast. Slowly, slowly. Okay. Good,
Yeah,
good to hear.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you because I've recently been going through some coaching course. And what you're sharing with me, I see a direct connections between it. We call it somatic therapy, meaning how you can use your body to change the way your mind thinks. And I directly can see a lot of benefits beyond just purely playing this in an education context and a team bonding context. I think there's a possibility of doing it in the therapy settings as well. Because there are cases of which if you become acutely aware of how you respond to all these challenges, right, you can then use a more formal way of doing or proper way of doing it that can change the way your mind thinks. So I really like that connections that you're sharing. Yeah.
Thank you. And what's happening is that obviously with Abby and Jana doing a lot of work with therapists, and I know a lot of you have also, you know, in your own right, therapists and working with children that have got areas where you're trying to assist them and help them, is that we're finding it more prevalent there, Jensen, where the executive function and spatial awareness is less developed. That if we don't practice these exercises with them, what happens is the spiral becomes worse and worse. The anxiety over what they can do and spatial awareness and even relationship in terms of the person. They're not comfortable sitting next to somebody. They're not comfortable touching arms with somebody, so it extends even into that world, you know what I mean, which is another level, right? So
Correct. I mean, this is the whole point is actually using your body to change the way your mind thinks. I mean, exactly what you're doing, right? Left, right, causing the bumping of the on the shoulders and all stuff. These are really using your body as a cue to help your mind process things. And if you constantly do that over a period of time, then your mind would have changed as a result of that movement. So that's certainly in the same as coaching, in the sense that sometimes when you feel tense up, you can actually, if you become aware that you're tense up or you're stressed, you can actually pause and actually reflect. As an adult, if you have that skill, we can actually pause and reflect which part of our bodies are tense up and how are we, in the and if you change the body, literally you notice that you're not so tense up anymore. So that's from a standpoint of somatic body transformation. So there's a whole body of science that talks about it. It's very fascinating. So what you're doing, actually, I can see the direct linkage on that, using the body as a somatic therapy to help people to change their mind. So it's brilliant, beautifully done. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Jason, I think it's also just so cool because if we think about the world that we're living in, we're not really giving our children opportunities to develop that self-awareness, right? So that by the time we get to adulthood, it's a very cognitive process. We're not tuned in to that semantic side. So I think it's a beautiful way to get that going from early childhood, noticing where I feel things, when I'm anxious or when I'm happy, where do I notice it in the body, so that when we get older, we have got adults that are very in tune with those things. So I think that's beautiful comment.
Absolutely. So there are quite a number of techniques on this. There's Alexander techniques as well that looks into how you do your breathing and movement, right? That change the way you think as well. So I think there's a lot of body of knowledge over there that I can see directly how it could apply by playing with 6 bricks itself. So it's beautiful. I just very excited about what you have shared. Yeah.
And also, Kesvin put a very important comment in the chat, which is really important, is that for children that are struggling with any one of these areas, what I showed you today would be overwhelming. It's too much sensory for them. And so remember, that's what I said. Please don't go and do what I did with you today straight away with a group of people or children or whatever, because it's going to be too much. Build up to this. And it may only be your really strong group of children that you're able to do all of this with. Or not even children. It may be teens or adolescents or adults that you do this with, or team building. Or training, so don't think that this is for all children. Some of this is complicated, and work it out for yourself. So as facilitators, you're going to have to work out for yourself, what level do you go at? And when you see too many mistakes and too much frustrations, stop. Make sure that you have a way to stop yourselves and go back a step until they can do it again and again and again. And Pesvin, you're right. In the beginning, it's just like anything new, right? If somebody teaches you how to drive a car, understanding how the clutch works and getting the accelerator to go at the same time is too much. In the beginning, you think, I'm never going to be able to do this. But years later, you can drive and you don't even think about it. So it's the same with these activities. You need to make sure that in the beginning, there's still a challenge. There must be a challenge, but you get them to overcome those challenges. And as they overcome them, they're going to be able to do more and more and more. And then not only are we building spatial awareness, but we're definitely working on executive functions. And so it's really powerful. Yeah, exactly. Brilliant comments. What about starting with only 3 bricks to start off with? Who says you have to use 6, right? We've always said that in all the exercises, use less bricks if it's a difficulty. So for children that are having difficulties, change the number of bricks. You don't have to use 6. I've also seen in schools, I've seen where schools replace the bricks with something else. So earlier, we were saying, instead of a blue brick, maybe I've got a blue elephant. And so I put the elephant down on the table. And so the elephant is easier for the child to identify with, and it's something that they may be interested in. It could be a theme around animals this week. And instead of using the bricks, I'm going to use the animals that I'm going to use. So the elephant takes a step forward. And if you look at an elephant, because his trunk is in the front, they know which is backwards and which is forward, because that's facing in that direction. So you can help children also with that. Okay, so the elephant can go backwards and forwards. And if you're using animals, you could actually bring in other ideas. What about turn around? So what happens if the elephant turns around? So he now faces in a different direction. So we can have a yellow aeroplane, we could have a light blue car, and that could change direction as well. So the elephant can take one step forward, but the elephant could turn around. Now, where is one step forward to the elephant? Because all of a sudden, the elephant's facing in a different direction, and he has to move forward according to his position in space. So now the step forward is the opposite direction because he turned around. So do you see how you can change language, perception, and whatever? The world is not static. The lives that these children living is not static. We have to teach them that every movement changes their perspective of the world. And they have to be able to build that spatial awareness according to the position that they're in right now. And if it changes in 2 seconds, they need to rebuild and recalibrate. So we need their brains to be recalibrating all the time, because their success is going to be built on this.
Just also thinking about a Z-axis and 3 dimensions,
Yeah.
like understanding 3 dimensions.
Yeah, so what Abby's saying is that is particularly useful when we go to the 3rd dimension. So I'm one day going to develop it, I haven't yet, but I want a mat that has 3 levels. So that the brick is at the bottom, the brick is in the middle, or the brick is on the top, because then top and bottom is going to be better understood. And so I actually want to build one maybe in Perspex or something where we can see the lines and we can actually take a brick from underneath and bring it up into the middle section and up into the 3rd section so that we can look at X, Y, and Z. Okay, so that's coming. So bring me, pass me the big one, the Duplo. So what will happen is it'll be on a Perspex similar to this, so that we can get our 360 degrees. And what will happen is the second layer will be here. So the child picks up the brick, has to remember that the brick has to transfer through this onto that line over there. That is going to really help with 3 dimensions. Okay, and the 3rd dimension, when you understand all 3 dimensions, there's a study that I'm going to send you in the studies that will tell you that will fix any maths problem that you have. Okay, so when you're able to do this in all 3 of the planes, you're going to be able to fix nearly every single problem. Okay, I think everybody's back from the bathroom break. Jensen, go for it.
Oh, I just wanted to share that what you're highlighting is very important for me, because from a habit formulation perspective, right, consistency should triumph over challenge. So if you want the kids to start practicing, it's getting them to consistently practice and having fun practicing it. It's absolutely critical in building up eventually to a point where they are able to do the very sophisticated, even the 3D. So that's always in my mind, always about consistency first before increasing the challenge when you see the body language or boredom setting in. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And guys, be writing great comments in the chat box. I'm trying to pick up as many as I can as I'm sitting here. And there's great ideas. I mean, Tracy's talking about only using 3 lines. Exactly. Why start with 5 lines? If you're just doing the basics, after you've done the body, you can go to 3 lines on the mat, you know? And there's nothing stopping you guys doing 10 lines. So what I want to look at now, I'm going to shift across a little bit to the mathematics, okay? And hopefully, I know some of you have done this with me, but I can't remember who's done it and who hasn't. So I want to go into that. Frank, you got a question? Or is that you've done it? You're just showing me who has. Yes, Frank has done this with me. So what I want to do on the mathematics is, I know you know how to do the maths. What I want to show you is, can you clearly identify spatial understanding versus number concept? Are you as a facilitator able to identify when a child is using spatial awareness and when a child is using number concept? It makes sense. Okay, because I think you can see it. So as a facilitator, if I can show you how you can see it, you might change your lens about what's happening in front of you. You might look at it in a slightly different way. So have a look here. So watch what's going to happen. You all know the exercise where we put numbers on the lines, right? The first line closest to me is going to have a value of 1, a value of 2. The red line is going to have a value of 3, a value of 4, and a value of 5. Very easy. And you've all done the movements, you know, orange to 4, light blue to 1. Then we've even done things like association. So we can do the mathematics based on association, right? So if green is on 5, yellow can be on 4, and dark blue can be on 2. So now I've got all my bricks spread out on different numbers on the mat. Now I can use association to do some manipulation of those numbers. So you can see on my mat right now, you can see my green brick because it's the closest, you can see it there, and you can see the orange brick. Okay, so if I move them slightly closer, if you look at the green and the orange brick, you can see that the green brick and the orange brick is a distance of 1 step. Okay, you can see it, it's quite clear, right? Are you using number concept to determine that or spatial awareness to determine that? Okay, so if you look at it and you can see it, it's spatial awareness. Where is number concept? Number concept is when I tell somebody in the group to move the dark blue brick to green minus orange. Because if you say green has a value of 5 and orange has a value of 4, 5 minus 4 equals 1. So I move this brick to 1. That's number concept. Because you're saying green has a value of 5. You're associating the value to the color. Orange has a value of 4, and you go into that. Now, you can almost tell whether a child is using number concept or spatial awareness because you'll watch them. They'll do the following. If they're using spatial awareness, they'll often tap the lines. You'll see them because they're using the spatial distance, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're using the space as an indicator, a way to help them. The child that moves the brick straight to the answer is probably using number concept. So if I say dark blue to green minus orange and they go 1 straight away, they're able to apply mental mathematics very quickly. 5 minus 4 equals 1. Okay, and there'll be some children, if I gave you the sum 5 minus 4, they might sit for a long time working out 5, the concept of 5 minus the concept of 4, trying to come up with the answer. But when it's in front of them like this, if I say to them, how far apart is green and orange? They'll tell you 1 like that straight away. So spatially, they'll understand it. Spatially, they'll be able to do it. But because of number concept, and because their number concept isn't well defined, they might struggle with 5 minus 4.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it the same as counting on fingers?
Okay, so in the studies that I send you as well, there are conflicting inputs around counting on fingers. And there's one really cool thing, and I'm only going to send it to your group, okay, just for your perusal to go through. There's, I'm trying to think of the term that they use. There's a term that they use for when you're using anything like objects to count things. So it could be dots on a dice. So even though we see the dots on the dice as a number, some people see the dots on the dice as counters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they use that as a counting mechanism. And then they use their fingers, and it's got a funny name. And so you can use that as a device to help you, and it can be an assist. It can be seen as a manipulative. Do you know that?
I don't know.
I'll tell you that. Yeah, and so you can use the manipulatives. If anybody knows the name, just type it in the blog. I can't remember it. And so you can use your fingers as a manipulative, but more so when somebody puts up their hand and identifies that as 5 and knows that 7 is 5 plus 2. That's where they say it's useful. What they don't think is that useful is when a child starts counting from the beginning. In other words, starting at 1 when you should know that this is 5 can be detrimental to helping you.
Rational counting.
Yeah, Miriam's got a really big one there. Miriam, that would definitely throw me. Okay, so I think terms use it, there's different terms for it. That's not the one I've seen, but that's really sounding scary already.
But what I was asking is that is counting on your fingers, like if you go 5,
Yeah.
take away 4, is that spatial or is that number?
Oh, good question. So Abby's saying, if I'm using my fingers as digits and I use them to say like 5 minus 3 equals 2, is that spatial or is that number concept? Think about it for yourselves. Is it spatial or is it number concept? Okay, so if little kids do this with their fingers, they can actually put their fingers into the bricks and they stick. So they have them like little puppets that got 5 on their fingers. If I'm using a brick or if I'm using my finger, it's spatial. Okay, in that sense over there, it's spatial because I'm identifying with the object that takes up space. Okay, I'm not looking at these as a number concept at all. And that's why children who are struggling, that's it, subsidizing. How do you say it?
Sabotaging.
Sabotaging, that's why. That's it, Martin. That's the word I was looking for, sabotaging. How do you say it, Martin? Say it for me. Is that right? Sabotaging. Okay, perfect. Okay, so there are lots of cases where people say it's definitely beneficial. But the one that they say creates a few problems is as when children count out something that they should recognize. So it's like a child not being able to recognize a sight word when they're doing language. That slows them down and stops them with the reading, the mechanics of reading. So in mathematics, if I can't tell that this is 5, I've got a problem. Okay, so when I hand it in the beginning, yeah, calculating without counting, exactly, sabotaging. So basically, I put up 5. I don't count the 5. I don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't have to. I calculate based on a knowledge of this. Okay. All right, and just remember that that's where children will demonstrate their understanding, the best understanding of the math. If they count on their fingers, they want to use spatial awareness. And then you as the teacher should help them with the spatial awareness. So do more spatial awareness activities on the mat because those children will conceptualize far quicker. And eventually they'll bring number concept and spatial awareness will come together. It happens naturally. I get a lot of people saying to me, Brent, how do I move somebody from from spatial awareness to number concept? You don't have to. You don't have to. It's not a must. It will happen naturally. But if a child is constantly struggling with number concept and they just don't get the number concept, you might want to go, you might then, as a teacher, have to go back and do more exercises with spatial planning. Spatial awareness. Okay, so the other way around, that way around is necessary, going the other way around is not necessary. But what I want to show you is something else as well. A lot of you have asked questions around, we're working on base 5. If we've got 5 lines, we're working on base 5, but the world doesn't work on base 5. The world works on base 10. Okay, so this can be very confusing to a lot of children. Just working with numbers on 5 is confusing, especially if we try the booklet on the advanced mathematics. So a lot of people are saying, is there a way to incorporate 10 just on this mat without having to print a new mat? Yes, there is, because the spatial awareness, the spatial planning is already here on the mat. So what happens is, if I go to base 10, I need 0. 0 is important and I'm going to need 0 because if I do a calculation where the answer is 0, children need to be able to identify 0, right? So what I do is the following. Think about it like this. There's no right answer, no wrong answer. If you were a child, what would make sense to be in 0 on this mat? Well, not much because everything has significance, right? and you want 0 to be a placeholder for nothing. So the best placeholder for nothing is off the mat, not even on the mat. So 0 is off the mat. You all understand that? So here's my 0. The first line becomes 1 because it's easy in association. It's number 1. But we can use the space because there's enough room. Raphael's in. Okay, so we can use the space in between the lines now because there is enough space to put another brick there. So number 2 becomes in between the lines. Number 3 is the line, number 4, number 5, and I'm going to carry on 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've got 0 to number 9. And again, if you wanted to have a 10, you can build in a 10, as in the 1 with the 0 can be above the mat. But let's just do 0 to 9 for now. So let's work in on 0 to 9. What's cool about this is we talk to children about odd numbers and even numbers. So on this mat now, if we look at all the numbers that are on lines, they are going to be odd. Okay, because that's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. All the odd numbers sit on a line. So we've got an easy representation of odd numbers versus even numbers. Okay, so we have odd and even on the same mat. And so what it allows us to do is to use the space in between as the placeholder, and allows us to do a lot more mathematics if we want to in terms of that. So those of you that have been asking me about base 10, you don't have to develop a mat with 10 lines. You can use this system like this. I like 0 off the table. I think 0 off the table is quite cool for children. Because if you noticed, it's one of the most difficult things for young children when a teacher tries to explain 0 to them. Have you watched a teacher trip over their own tongue when they explain 0? Because the child's trying to understand this concept. Like, so what do you mean by 0? The teacher says, 0 it stands for nothing. Okay, so it's not important. If it's nothing, it's not important. No, actually, it's very important. Okay, well, why is it important if there's nothing there? So the questions that kids ask about 0 are fascinating. Okay, but if we can tell them that 0 is off the mat, it's a starting point. It's a nicer way to describe how 0 could have. Okay. Also, this would allow us now to go to much higher numbers and to do a lot more calculations around this. Another thing for children is to have a look at patterns. So you know that we look at patterns on the mat. So the pattern on the mat could be that, let's say we plot out all the numbers on the left-hand side like this, and I use another set of 6 bricks with a group to start looking at things. There's, if I add number 1, so here's number 1. If I add number 1 and number 3 together, what number does it give me? So now the children go, it's a 1 and it's a 3. So the answer is 4. So they put the brick down and they say, right, a 1 and a 3 equals 4. Without telling a child, if we did this over and over again, what a child could determine on their own, which would be incredibly powerful, is if I add 2 odd numbers, what is my result? So 2 odd numbers gives me a result that is it odd or is it even? Okay, so all of a sudden you could start looking at patterns around what happens if I add 2 odd numbers. So if they're doing a simple maths exercise or a simple maths test at school, and the 2 numbers are odd numbers, and their answer is something different, they can say, wait a minute, they can learn how to build check systems for themselves. Tracy's lost, have I lost my sound or can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Okay. Tracy lost my sound. Okay. All right, she'll be back. Okay, so it's also about patterns. And so this mechanism allows us to look at those patterns. So if I take 2 even numbers, so if I take number 2 and number 4, and I want to add the 2 of them together, my answer is an even number. If I add an odd number and an even number, you can get the pattern. All right, so you can start building the patterns and ask children, what are those 2? And where does the answer lie? Does the answer lie on a line or does it lie in between the lines? So that they all start identifying the odd numbers and the even numbers and just those patterns. Okay, so we can take the mat and we can extend this into a much wider range in terms of that. Any questions about this? Anything you want to ask about base 10 versus base 5? Base 10, my favorite show was sitting mat half or what? Okay, so good question. In the past, I also said to you, you can take the mat and you could technically put a line down the middle of the mat, or you could put something down the middle of the mat. It doesn't even have to be a line, it could be something else. Okay, no, it's fine. Just want to show. Or even something long, anything long. Yeah, okay, so this one, where Abby's just drawn the line down the middle of the mat. So are we in favor of which one? I would say I'm in favor of both, Martin. I'll tell you why. What happens on this mat over here, it allows you to build the bonds because the bonds are important. So because we start with 1 at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we know that we're working in base 5. 1 and 5 equals 6, 2 and 5 equals 7, 3 and 5 equals 8. Okay, so it's helping us with the bonds as well and building up to that number of 10. So I like this exercise as well because I think children need to look at it at all different ways instead of just one way. So if I was the teacher, I wouldn't just use one way of doing it. I would use multiple ways because it helps them to conceptualize these number concepts that they're having to deal with. And they need to know that those number concepts are fluid. They're not set in stone. Okay, so I would still look at both. I definitely wouldn't do one. Okay, and people have also asked us, can't you just print the numbers on the mat for the children? So here's my answer to that, right? So could you just print the numbers on the mat? Yes, of course you can. I can put a nice big number 1 on the first line and number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And when I do my PowerPoint presentation, I do exactly that for everybody. So I would just do exactly what Abby's done now, and I would put a big 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. Okay, and there you can see the numbers printed on the mat. Would that help children? Is that good for children? Is it bad for children? My perception, and my perception's not always right. I think most of you know that. Okay, so I wouldn't go according to Brent, but I want to tell you the following. If a child has to do the exercise I showed you earlier, and I had 1 brick on the 5 and 1 brick on the 4, it's going to force me to go to number concept, which I might not like. And instead of just looking at the distance between the two and letting that help me and take away my anxiety, you're going to force me to use the numbers, which I might not be comfortable with. So I'm all for not putting the numbers on the mat. But what happens if you've got a child who can't remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? They can't hold that in their working memory. So what happens if you're working with children that have issues with remembering? Their short-term memory is not allowing them to remember which is line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, as adults, none of you probably have that problem, but there are children who do have that problem. And then if you have to write the numbers on to help them, you may put it there as a way to help them. So a lot of you have got your own variations. So what I also want is I want time for feedback. So I've left 15 minutes to get some feedback from you, to ask any generalized questions, and then also for you to share your experiences on this. So those of you that have got experience, yeah, Beacon's back. So I know you've got great experience as well. I want you to share some of those with everybody and also help me answer the questions because you're doing it every single day. Tracy, I know Tracy can hear us now, but I want Tracy also to give us some feedback as well. And also I want feedback around how did you find today's session? Have I covered too much? Or was it what you were looking for? Those type of things. So flashcards with the numbers, I agree. Martin, 100%. Something that's not permanent so that you can take it away as children are comfortable, right? And also, did today help you? I mean, the biggest part was, did today help? Frank, yeah. Good. Only exercise, basically. Okay, I understand that. Frank, sometimes when you're starting, all you're ever going to do is the basics. It's not important, right? If that's your starting point and that's what you do 100%, stick to it. The temptation is to try and act smart and to show them how clever you are and all the things that you can do, and actually doesn't help them. So it's actually better that you recognize that you only do that. You know, that's brilliant. Okay, Pesvian, I like that you like the theory. Remember, I haven't sent you the links to the the studies yet, and hopefully that will reinforce it even more, right? So we rather do it in practice, and then you can decide what you want to read up on. Frank, it's quite interesting that you say in Germany it's hard to convince teachers because, from our generalization around countries and people, I thought that this structure would be something that Germans would be quite happy with, So it's kind of weird in a way. It doesn't make sense to me, Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, good, Mernal. I'm glad that you've taken something away. We'll see more. We'll see more maths on Sunday bricks. That's good to hear.
Brand, maybe
Yes.
I just
Yes.
I prefer to speak face to face all the time. Yeah, I just want to share that this comes really very timely because right now I'm working with 6 teachers of a primary school, trying to get some of the children excited about math again. And the reason why I agree with training them is because they have some funding. They are going to try out some experiment in the classroom. And your session actually lay quite a lot of great foundation that I could work with them to see how that get translated into, for example, like you say, spatial awareness and number concept, which is the preference, and how the preference will make a difference in the learning of the children. And so now there's a possibility that I could work closer with them to do this. So I will be really grateful you could send me those research articles and possibly even consult you along the way, because as they completed the course, they actually wanted to design an experiment on how to gather data about the usefulness of using the math. 6 bricks in the math teaching of the math. Yeah.
So make sure that if there's anybody who doesn't get the material, the research, when I say research, we've just got it's just some of my ideas, some things that I want you to play with, and then a bit of a research article which has got different references in, and you can go into those references yourself. If you don't get it, obviously just, send Abby or Jana a message and we'll do it. But thanks, Jensen, there's in a scroll on the chat, it's very fast. One of the things that was brought up, Ilse, I think it was you, was talking about shapes. Very important, very, very important. Geometric shapes, guys. The research points to it as well. Is on that flip side of the mat, we have the geometric shapes. Don't underestimate this with still children that are in foundation phase up to 8 and 9 years old can definitely benefit from this. Not only do you use these shapes as a reference, but you can build shapes on the mat. So we can actually talk about how many points of reference. So what we can say is build a shape, and every time you cross a line, you must put a brick on the line. So you must show me the shape by referencing a crossing point where you cross the line, which is going to help with graphing at a later stage. It's going to help with plotting with symmetry, with all of those things. So yes, very, very important to consider shape and geometry. And for you, those of you that haven't spoken to me for a while, I want to tell you something really interesting, which I found fascinating. And I might be able to share something with you on it because they've done some incredible research. So in Italy, there's a foundation in Italy, which is it's called Agnelli Foundation, or Fondazione Agnelli. And that is the family that own Ferrari. So probably a pretty well-off foundation, I would imagine. Seen as Ferrari was the #1 brand in the world until Lego kicked it out, and now Lego's #1 in the world. Okay, so the Agnelli Foundation decided to put some resources behind an incredible study. What they were not happy about was that when boys and girls start school, if you plot it around the world, so if you look at the entry level mathematics ability of boys versus girls, boys are ahead of girls nearly everywhere in the world. And girls are quite far behind boys for the first 2 years of school. In about the 3rd year, girls start catching up and overtake the boys. And then they stay ahead of the boys for a certain period. That's normally because they are very good at listening and they follow instructions and they sort it out for themselves. But what the Italian teachers were interested in is, could we put an intervention in place that corrects this? So they thought it was a correction that was needed, so that we could get girls to the same starting point as boys, and would that have a lot of benefit? So they did a study. What happened was they weren't happy with 6 bricks, okay? So 6 bricks on its own wasn't good enough, all right? And so I went across and I did some work with them. What they added, so this will be interesting for some of you, is what they added was 4 more bricks. First of all, it got us to base 10. So a lot of you would understand that, right? We need 10 objects for base 10. What they did was they added 1 brick that was double the length of the 6 bricks. So pretend this is a Duplo brick. I had 1 long brick that I added, okay? And then they broke the 6 bricks into 3 and 3. And then they added thin bricks, half the size of the 6 bricks, the base bricks, the base plate bricks. They added some of those, 2 of those. So there's 6, 7, 8, 9, and a 10th long one, thin one as well. So what we were able to do is we were able to build with those bricks, we were able to build shapes, because the longer brick allows us to do triangles that had, if we use 6 bricks, we're stuck because we don't always have a longer side. So it allowed more geometry to come in. They wanted a bit more geometry. It allowed us base 10 and allowed us to change the designs a little bit. And then they did a study with that. They implemented it in different grades in Italy, and they've done a study. They published that, but I think it's in Italian, so it didn't really help me much. So we need to get it translated for us to be able to understand it. And we're in that process at the moment, trying to get that done. And I think a lot of you would be interested because it's got some interesting things. But the part that I want to share with you is the following. First of all, it corrects itself. So, it's not a panic station for countries. But why do I think it happens? I have a sense about this. So what happens when you're working with children that haven't yet gone to school? So depending on the country and the context, the environment, culture, everything changes. So this is not a generalization, but I want you to think of the following, is that when we give a child, a girl child, when she's young, when we give her a toy, it may look like this. This is a bigger toy, or it could be a doll, or it could be a Barbie doll. It could be, something like that. So you give a girl this. And when I'm playing with this bear, have a look where the bear is in context to my body. So if I hug it here. If I put it here, if I put it down and I change its nappy, where am I doing it? Where is all the activity happening with this doll? Okay, it's happening in my comfort zone. It's a very comfort zone. It's even comforting to hug it and to hold it, right? It's all about comforting and building that nurturing personality in the woman or the girl. So it's about teaching them that maybe is important, and they learn how to do that, okay? And they lay everything out in front of them beautifully, neatly. Girls are better structured than boys, and it's here. Okay, and so what happens is, and you know this from the training we've done, is that this is not going to create the spatial awareness that I might want. But we give a young boy a car or an aeroplane. He doesn't play with it here. Where does the aeroplane go? It goes here, and it goes there, and on the floor, and it's going everywhere else. And so what's happening is crossing his midline, he's taking outside the range of vision. He's doing all of that, far more than the young girl is. And of course, that's stereotypical. And of course, that's not how it happens everywhere. But in the majority of cases, that is true. Okay. And so you can understand that would create a different spatial awareness at an early age. And if spatial awareness at age 4 is your best predictor of maths ability at age 8, all of this makes sense.
Brent, the takeaway from me today is called, to use your phrase, create the chaos. So that's a phrase that really sticks with me. So that when you're doing your math activity, if it's too easy and there's no challenge, the learning is not progressing. If it's too difficult or too much chaos and too much challenge, it can be frustrating, and children can start to clam up If they get the wrong feeling, learning shuts down because their processing systems go into self-preservation mode.
Yeah.
So it's a creation of chaos that it's enjoyable, not too much not too little that they tune out, I'm not interested, or too much that I shut down because I go into self-preservation mode. So the children are working in their zone of proximal development. So you find that zone, and then you create enough challenge or create the chaos to keep it mixed up, keep it interesting, and keep it moving. So I would coalesce all of this around create the chaos, because I think if the chaos is right, the learning is fun, the skills are progressing, and we're building and we're learning.
Yeah, 100%, Martin. So in chaos, there's danger and there's opportunity. You need to identify the opportunity, stay away from the danger. And that's exactly the same with the body movements, right? It's no good bumping shoulders. Stay away from the danger, go with the flow. You're 100% right. Use that chaos to help you get somewhere. I know Tracy's going to jump in. Erica, I know you've also done some work on the mats as well and some research, but I'm not sure if you've researched the mat yet. So if you have, please jump in as well. Tracy, have you got anything for us?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you?
Yes,
hear me?
we can. We can.
I've just come off a webinar on movement and learning and how the child is actually wired for movement. And I'm just loving the movement that's coming into the mat. And I actually think any age child can do this from as young as 4 years. You know, I'm so excited because, you know, it just includes that vestibular, and especially with children spending so much time on screens at the moment, it's even more important, and also for the sensory integration for that vestibular system and the proprioception, and for the other one that they are using that they call the interoception. You know, that it's just amazing. So thank you so much for this, Brett. I've really taken away a lot, and it's going to just open more doors for me as a teacher in preschool education.
Brilliant. And as I said, Tracy's doing a lot of mat activities. She's adapting the mat for her children. She's really got her children. And Tracy spoke to us previously and told us that she's seen a difference, you know, in terms of what's happening in her classroom. And she's teaching a lot of other teachers. So she's helping us, you know, transfer this across, and people are really excited by it. So thank you, Tracy, for all the stuff that you're doing on it as well.
You know, I've also I just want to come in here, and this is somewhere else where we maybe can bring our 6 bricks in, is into building sports, team building activities.
Yeah,
you know, because that peripheral vision is so important for any sport, whether it's hockey or rugby or baseball or anything. That is so important. I'm just actually thinking, wow, this is something we can actually market even into sports teams.
Yeah, so those of you working with adults, consider this as a team building exercise and an opportunity to expand your 6 bricks. Because in South Africa, I've been asked by the South African touch rugby team. So that's the touch rugby team that's going to the Olympics. They've asked me to train them on this. So don't think this is for children. I mean, that's a professional group of professionals. Abby can tell you that. Abby's doing this training with all the do you want to tell them? Come and just tell them. Abby can explain to you how she's using it quickly. Yeah.
Sorry. So I've developed a program that works on mental health in young athletes, specifically focused on climbers and the climbers that are going to world champions. And we've also got a few that are going to Olympics, but we use it actually to train the coaches to help look at mental health and how they're encouraging, you know, kind of mental health skills in the athletes that they're working with. And we work with the athletes as well. And this has been really effective. They've loved these activities. Yeah, I don't know, that's just.
Yeah, and also, so if you think of climbing and you think of the wall, the children have to be able to look at the wall, and not only the children, adults, right? They're going to look at the wall and try and work out what route they're going to take. Well, on the back of the mat, you know, this is where we've been planning routes and how to get somewhere very quickly and what's the best method and how do we automate that. So, you know,
Climbing is all about coding.
Yeah, it's all about coding, exactly. So, you know, we've got it, it's in front of us. We've just got to take it to the next level. And I know some of you are looking for new ideas and different ways to take it. So here's an opportunity for you guys to take it up and, you know, the notch as well. When we had the team from the, I don't know what we call them, the 6 bricks facilitators, the new group that we had in South Africa now, I was lucky enough to have the afternoon with them on the very last day. So instead of 4 days, they went to 5 days. And instead of going on too many visits, they asked to do a little bit more in depth. And we did the mat with them. And I can tell you, it was absolutely incredible. We took it to levels that we've never done before with any of the, and they absolutely loved it. So I think in the future, we might have to have just a international training and experience on the mat. And just before anybody asks, when are we meeting again? Because I'm expecting it to come up in the chat.
6 of the 6.
Yeah, 6 of the 6, we're going to have, obviously, the 6 of the 6 is important to have an international meetup. Anything else? I know we're on time. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So if there's nothing else, I just want to first of all say thank you for your time. I know that you're all very, very busy people and doing so much good out there. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I know that there are others who will watch this later. I hope that they are just as excited by what we've done today. And just remember, it's going to be you emailing us with other suggestions for similar type sessions, anything extra that you want. I can tell you, Martin knows because people have been telling him already, the new 6 bricks mats and ideas are almost ready. So we're going to have some sessions. If we can't do it in person, we may soon have to start showing you some of the new stuff that we've developed. So keep watching this space. But otherwise, thank you, Rafael. So good to see you today. I know that you're excited to be hosting some of these co-presenters soon in your country.
Nice.
And Martin might be hosting me soon. So I'm hoping for some more invitations from the rest of you to come and visit you. But thank you so much. So good to see you all. So brilliant to see your smiles and to have your participation. So thank you. Thank you.